adulthood isn't something that happens instantly. You don't just cross a line and find yourself in the field of self-sufficiency.
Yeah, how are you free? And notice, it's not how free are you, it's how are you free? What do you do in an average day that the government doesn't touch? And the answer to that question is almost nothing.
It's happening to me more and more that people are super fascinated with how I live.
And you can think about this in terms of local zoning. Can you build a house that doesn't have electricity in it?
So if you're someone who's interested in living off-grid, I'm excited for you and I want to encourage you, but let's also be real.
Nah, the zoning board's probably going to take issue with that, right? Can you build a house without plumbing?
You can just sit right straight down on a bucket, and I started out trying that. I didn't do it very often. I didn't do it for very long because these things are pretty sharp.
And it gets, I think, a little worse than that, right? When you look at groups that want to live the way they want to live for their own reasons, whatever those reasons might happen to be. And the government will step in and say, because we don't allow this particular form of behavior generally, you can't engage in it either.
A little bit crazy about, germ-phobic about it. I want to be clean when I'm done.
The people will be able to pursue their happiness better when the powers of government are limited so as to protect a wide sphere. That's the very, very purpose of the Constitution. All power is derived from the people, but the Constitution limits how the people can exercise their powers.
Even if it happens to undermine your First Amendment rights in terms of the free exercise of your religion.
I'm a son of this community. I was born and raised 4 miles from here in an Amish family who then switched to Mennonite in my teen years. This community is very much focused on taking care of its own. While we get annoyed at people on the roads who don't drive the same way we do, that doesn't mean it doesn't connect to the broader world. We do, in many ways.
The Amish are an interesting group. They have managed, more so I think than any other group in the United States, to stay out as much as possible from under the regulatory state.
But where they've been in contention with the federal government is on education.
Very few things touch the conscience of a human being as deeply as an honestly held religious opinion.
One of the things people don't understand about the Amish is that they also have a commitment to teach their children beyond school. And so in many cases, they actually serve an apprenticeship in those years where they would normally be in high school.
People are permitted to believe whatever they want to believe, but they may not be permitted to do whatever they want to do.
In the early 1970s, a school district in Wisconsin began to put pressure on a group of local Amish families to send their children to school. A truancy officer began to pursue the parents and threaten to fine them. And in an extreme case, one morning the sheriff and the truancy officer showed up at the school. The children ran into the cornfields. You have a famous picture of these children running across a cornfield, running away from the officers. Subsequently, a number of men, heads of household, were arrested and imprisoned.
Typically, Americans take the approach that I should be able to do whatever I want unless I hurt someone else.
And so I would say the cultural markers are a very strong commitment to family, and then a very strong commitment to a local group of believers that share the same heritage of faith, and a very strong commitment to living well with the environment. So family, farm, and faith.
But then how does one define harm? Right? Does it have to be an individual that's harmed? Or can we drift back a step and say, well, doesn't this harm all of society in some way?
They argued that high school was actually teaching their children things that was detrimental to their faith, and took away from family and the ability to apprentice and teach their children good skills.
And we do find from time to time that these sorts of exemptions are carved out for certain groups and not others.
And they ruled that the freedom of religion and the freedom to choose that and how to practice that is more important than a formal high school education.
And it's always a bit of a curiosity what qualifies one group to get the exemption when others who are similarly situated cannot. So, the Amish, are they compelled to go to public school like everyone else is? No, it's not the same for them. Isn't that interesting?